चरितं यस्याः पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धारूपेण संस्थित नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। Salutations at the holy feet of Divine Almighty. My special pranams to Divine Mother Mangala Devi, the local deity of Mangalore city. My pranams to Most Revered Swami Jitakamanandaji Maharaj, the guiding force for all of us working in Karnataka under the banner of Ramakrishna Vivekananda Bhava Prachara Parishad. Honorable Vice Chancellor of our esteemed Mangala Gangotri University, my respects to you, my love and respects to the coordinator of Vivekananda Study Center run by our university, my special love and best wishes to Brother Ranjan, who became an instrument in getting me on the stage today to deliver a lecture on the occasion of Chicago Historical Address. First, I thank our Vice Chancellor and our university officers for their Herculean task in the process of establishing Swami Vivekananda Study Center in the university. My memories go back to 2008 when Dr. S.C. Sharma was Vice Chancellor of Tumkur University, who became an instrument in establishing a Vivekananda Study Center here. And I happened to be the founder convener for Vivekananda Study Center in Tumkur University, in addition to serving the university as an honorary professor. I was fortunate enough to serve even the Karnataka State Higher Education Council as honorary professor. And I delivered more than 13 lectures when I was convener of Vivekananda Study Center in Tumkur University. Recently, Sheshadripuram Institution in Tumkur, the degree college, headed by Dr. Jagadish, the principal, they conducted an international conference on Vivekananda, which was very well received all over the world. And it makes me very happy to share my thought with all of you, with my request to Honorable Dr. W.P. Krishna, the Honorable Secretary of Sheshadripuram Education Trust. They could establish Vivekananda Study Center in all the 17 colleges run under the banner of Sheshadripuram Education Trust. This speaks volumes because you have greater urge among our Indian youths to study the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Yesterday we have celebrated Chicago Address, in memory of Chicago Parliament of Religions, and we had a youth convention for 800 students in Tumkur. At the outset, I would like to bring to the kind notice of our listeners with regard to the purpose with which Swami Vivekananda went to America. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, as we all know, was highly respected as Avatara by the renowned thinkers, saints, and people with great spiritual background during his contemporary time. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna made it very clear that unless and until you have the special blessings of Divine Mother, you cannot teach the world at large. In continuation, Sri Ramakrishna says, Shukadeva had the special blessings from Divine Mother. Narada had blessings from Divine Mother. Shankaracharya had the special blessings of Divine Mother. And now it is Narendra who has been blessed by the Divine Mother to teach the world. So, when Sri Ramakrishna uttered this, perhaps the intellectuals, the people who had undergone the modern education, did not believe his words in the beginning. But later on, when Sri Ramakrishna repeatedly said in very many occasions that my Naren will teach the world, that utterance of the great Guru came into reality when Swami Vivekananda went to America and addressed on the first World Parliament of Religions on 11th September 1893. Swami Vivekananda's name today is not just the name of a saint. We must know Vivekananda has become a philosophy today. Vivekananda Tattva, Vivekananda Way is the beautiful word to quote. Now to Vivekananda's philosophy has spread like the great tentacles all over the world. Every country more or less has got one or the other institution running under the name of Swami Vivekananda. Hundreds of universities in the world, they have established Vivekananda study centers, Vivekananda research centers, and this is a matter to be understood properly. Swami Vivekananda, after the Mahasamadhi of his Guru Sri Ramakrishna, traveled along the length and breadth of the country. He studied the life, the reality, the ground reality of dependent India in those days. As we all know, the Britishers were ruling us, and India had suffered a lot under the administration of the foreign rule. For that matter, you have plenty of dynasties who established upper hand over India, and they ruled us for more than 1,000 years. All our Gurukula system of education was damaged, it was destroyed completely, and Indians were not permitted to speak anything high about their culture, about their civilization in those days. Even people like Rajaram Mohan Rai, Ishwara Chandra Vidyasagar, they belittled Vedanta and Upanishads because they were highly influenced by the Christian education system. But Swami Vivekananda's advent in Indian history, getting wonderful education of spirituality at the lotus feet of great Guru Sri Ramakrishna, and gaining experience by his wandering life, moving along with the length and breadth of the country, meeting the emperors, interacting with the divans, having discussions with the highly educated people of the country, Swami Vivekananda could pulse the reality of the country at that time. Then he came to Kanyakumari. He sat for meditation on a rock in the midst of the sea for 3 days, and his object of meditation was Bharat Mata. He did the tapasya just to get a proper, a wonderful, effective method how to bring the upcoming of his own motherland. He was blessed by Divine Mother, and he came back with an extraordinary idea of spreading the Vedanta in the Western world. Swamiji had experienced poverty among his countrymen. He had experienced the hypocrisy among the literates of the country. He had experienced the inability of our emperors to uphold the Indian values, the Hindu values, the Sanatana values. Ultimately, Swamiji decided to go to the Western countries and spread Vedanta so that they will come to know what exactly India is. So with that great intention, Swamiji traveled to United States of America. So when he landed on the soil of America, we must know that Swamiji was not at all known to even a single person on American soil. Just he had an information that the 400th year celebration of Columbus discovering America was planned in a beautiful way to have the celebration, and in that connection they had planned 179 days huge celebration, pertaining to science, surgery, health, law, governance, religion, so on and so forth. And they had different departments, different platforms to discuss. And there was a religious platform, equally a scientific platform too. Swamiji did not have any letter of introduction from the renowned people of his country. And on the other hand, he did not knew any renowned personality in American society at that time. But God willing, by the blessings of his Guru and Divine Mother, Swamiji came in contact with a professor. He was introduced to a professor called Professor John Henry Wright, the professor of Greek language in Harvard University. Professor Wright had conversation with Swamiji for a few hours, and finally he said, Swamiji, in the last 3-4 centuries, America has not witnessed a man of greatest intellectual gigantism like you. Why can't you take part in the coming Chicago conference on the religious subject? Swamiji said, Sir, I have come to America with that purpose only, but very unfortunately, I don't have any letter of introduction to my credit. Immediately Professor Wright says, what do you mean, Swamiji? Asking you for a credential is something like asking the sun to show his right to shine. Then he only gave a letter of introduction about Swamiji. In that letter, he beautifully writes a very significant sentence. Here is a monk from India who is more learned than all our professors of American universities put together. So the intellectual gigantism, the intelligence of Vivekananda was weighed higher than the sum total of the intelligence of all the professors of American university at that particular time. God willing, Swamiji could get permission to be a part of this wonderful conference on religion. In the beginning only, I shall make you one thing very clear, that Swamiji's intelligence, Swamiji's enormous knowledge and wisdom permitted him not only to address on the religious platform, he had an invitation even from the scientific platform to address on the scientific matters and titles. And before I get into the topic exactly, the conference and rest of the details, it is very unfortunate to see even till date that the greatness of this country, my India, has not been properly projected in our textbooks, has not been properly guided by our history books, our historians, our textbook authors to our children. When you see our youngsters graduating from the universities, if you ask them what is your next plan, immediately they will say, as soon as I complete my graduation, I want to get out of this country because this country is not good. I want to look into some country like America, Germany, Australia, so on and so forth, because younger generation of Indian society, they feel as if the Western countries are heaven on earth. But when we sincerely study the history of our country, without any prejudiced mind, we will come to know what Sir Thomas Roe said, what Pahian said, what Huyen Song said, what great thinkers who have recorded their names in the history of the world. Baruni, so many great thinkers, historians, they spoke about the greatness of my country. Very unfortunately, my dear textbook authors, my dear people belonging to the textbook committees, it is very unfortunate. I can put it in one sentence. Illiteracy is dangerous, but cultural illiteracy is more dangerous. I am very much upset whether government has made the people with cultural illiteracy in the forefront as a credential for them to become a member of textbook committee. Very unfortunate it is. Do you think cultural illiteracy is the greatest credential for anyone to become the member of the textbook committee? This is where exactly the burning issue lies. You see the textbook in Karnataka, for example, in 9th standard, they have a lesson on Swami Vivekananda. They have some 42 sentences. 80% of the sentences are childish. They are not worth reading. If they had asked any monk of Ramakrishna order, we would have given some 1,000 the best utterances, the best information about Vivekananda. But these people doesn't have patience. They doesn't have that courtesy to find out the greatness of Vivekananda from a reliable source. This is very unfortunate. See, before getting into the topic as such, I shall bring to your kind notice what the world, the great renowned thinkers all over the world speak about India. Because we have, even today, we have been hypnotized that if we want anything good, we must get it borrowed from the Western countries or any foreign country for that matter. Sir John George Woodroffe, a renowned British Orientalist, he says, an examination of Indian Vedic doctrines shows that it is in tune with the most advanced scientific and philosophical thought of the West. See, he is a British Orientalist, my dear friends. He is appreciating the Vedic doctrines of Sanatana Parampara. He says the Vedic doctrines of Sanatana Parampara, they are very much tuned with the modern, advanced scientific and philosophical thought of the West. Our textbook committee members must go through such things without any prejudiced thoughts in their mind. At the same time, I want to quote B.G. Raleigh in the Vedic Gods text. He says, this is very worth quoting, our present knowledge of the nervous system fits in so accurately with the internal description of the human body given in the Vedas 5,000 years back. Then the question arises whether the Vedas are really religious books or books on anatomy of the nervous system and medicine. Another scientist has said Vedas are not only the religious books, but they are the books on nervous system and medicine also. These utterances of great thinkers, renowned thinkers, honored all over the world, shows very clear that how intellectually India was strong. And the message of India, especially message conveyed in different facets of human life, what an amount of eternity it could carry on. See, this is the greatness of Sanatana Parampara. See, this is exactly where the Westerners are very much astonished. And I want to bring to your kind notice, upon invitation, I have traveled in 10 countries 6 times to deliver lectures. I was fortunate enough to deliver a lecture on the subject, how to minimize religiously motivated violence in the 4th World Parliament of Religions held at Barcelona, Spain in 2004. I was invited in Oxford. I had invitations from Turin University, Genova University of Italy, Sun Moon University in South Korea, and we had opportunities to address the students belonging to different universities in the Western world. And here I want to make it very clear that a continent like Europe has 26, 27 countries to its credit. More than 23 countries, they observe Bhagavad Gita and Chanakya's Arthashastra, a reference textbook for the subject of management. When I questioned Professor Bruno Barb of Genova University, Professor Alberto Pellicero of Turin University, they made it very clear to me that perhaps Gita and Arthashastra are the best reference books for management in the whole European universities. I was very fortunate to meet an elderly personality, Professor Piano, who happened to be the director for more than 50 universities, an advisory senior director, who guided more than 50 universities of Europe. And he was such a great man to accept that slowly Europe is turning towards not only accepting but seriously studying the Indian philosophy. So with this introduction, again I want to bring to your kind notice that a great philosopher cum poet, Emerson, says Indian civilization had reached the summit of human thought. Max Muller says Sanskrit is the language of languages. Will Durant says Sanskrit is the mother of European languages. See, these things very clearly say the impact of India, impact of Sanatana Parampara, impact of science and technology, what you find in Atharvana Veda, impact of Sanskrit. In recent times, the world-renowned magazines, they beautifully published articles about the importance of Sanskrit, and in one of the articles published, written by a renowned professor of American University, he says Indians are extraordinary achievers in the field of software, IT, and artificial intelligence for the reason they know better mathematics and excellent language called Sanskrit more than anybody else in the world today. These are the things which justifies the grandeur and gaiety of Indian Sanatana Parampara. So, Swami Vivekananda had great admiration for people like Whitman, Emerson, and Thoreau. We must know that Emerson was the first man in the United States who introduced Vedanta in America. My dear friends, let us see what the West speaks about Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, Guru of Swami Vivekananda. American renowned writer Lex Hickson says, Sri Ramakrishna is an Einstein of planetary civilization of the near future. Sri Ramakrishna is an Einstein of the planetary civilization of the near future, a greenhouse for the future evolution of humanity, the master key that opens all the cultures and all the hearts. See, this is the appreciation of a renowned writer from United States about Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. We have heard about Indian Roman Catholic by name Raimundo Panikkar. Panikkar says Hinduism has a place in the universe. Hinduism has a place in the universe, saving providence of God only after Swami Vivekananda expounded Vedanta in the West. This speaks about the greatest contribution of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda changed the focus of a religion from God to man or God in man. Earlier, Darwin had said There is struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. But Swami Vivekananda said, it is not struggle for existence alone, it is struggle for expansion. Expansion is life, contraction is death. Darwin could not touch the spiritual strata of human evolution. He miserably failed. We must know this. And at the same time, Swami Vivekananda taught the whole Western world about the true journey of human species, the Homo sapien. Swamiji says, spirituality insists man to move onward, forward, inward, and ultimately Godward. So this is the ultimate, the complete evolution of man being properly presented by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda says, civilization, true civilization should mean, what exactly it should mean is, it should mean the power of taking the animal man out of his sensual life. Earlier, there was a belief in the Western world after the Industrial Revolution that with the discovery of gravitational force by Newton, God was sent out of the physical world. With the advent of some special truths by Sigmund Freud, God was sent out of the intellectual and the mind of human. By the advent of postulates by Darwin, God was sent out of the physical body of the human. So ultimately, the dramatist from America, he says, they have given gate pass. They have sent out God from the physical world, from the intellectual world, and from the intelligent world too. But it is a great surprise to know that Albert Einstein, who bagged 2 Nobel Prizes, said, science can denature plutonium, but not the wickedness of human heart. And he continued to say, more than a life of success, I respect a life of values. My dear friends, what was the impact of Swami Vivekananda on the West is the most important matter to be discussed. The world's most powerful organized religion, that is Christianity, it faced greatest challenges in the second part of 19th century from Darwinians, the followers of Darwin philosophy, the humanists, Manavatavadi, and the modern scientists, Adhunika Vijnani. Swami Vivekananda was the first great religious leader in the West who declared to the Western audience that it is a sin to call a man sinner and that true religion is not of dogmas, rituals, belief system and faith. True religion, according to Vivekananda, is spirituality. It is looking upon the whole mankind as our own brothers and sisters, as one spiritual family. Yes, Karl Marx said that a religion is the opium of people. But do you have Karl Marx philosophy today in Russia? Do you have the followers of Stalin and Lenin today? With that very shallow philosophy, the Russian populace could not digest them properly, could not get what exactly they intended to, and ultimately USSR got divided into 20 plus different countries. And you clearly know, the statues of Stalin and Lenin were broken into pieces And people were very much frustrated with their philosophy. Yes, Karl Marx said that religion is the opium of people. But what Swami Vivekananda says, he says, religion is a tonic, religion is a vitamin, and religion is ultimately the source of energy. About the Columbian expedition I was mentioning, in the year 1893, September 11th, we had such a great celebration in the city of Chicago in United States. The Hall of Columbus was there, the Hall of Washington was there. Those were the different venues to conduct the different conventions. We must know that this Columbian expedition went on for 179 days, and it was attended by 27 million people from all over the world. There were more than 50 delegates on the dais who shared the stage with Swami Vivekananda, and 1,000 people presented their papers on the occasion of the first World Parliament of Religions. And there is a very popular dictum in those days, the dictum of Kipling, who said, "Oh, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet." But you know, when Swami Vivekananda went to United States, he could make Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam with the help of the greatest Sanatana Parampara. In case of men who came to create history by changing the course of the world, their biographies became bibliographies for the future generations. Swami Vivekananda in the Western world, he could observe beautifully what was the hidden agenda behind in organizing such a historical event. Even though World Parliament of Religion was aimed at the outer world to bring harmony of religions, to make people to live peacefully together, and to establish universal peace, the hidden agenda was they wanted to make Christianity, to prove Christianity the greatest religion of the world. And not only that, in front of Christianity, they wanted to make all other religious people laughing stocks, buffoons. They wanted to belittle all other religions in front of Christianity. But the reality, what it has recorded, became the vice versa, the opposite of what they had planned. Swami Vivekananda delivered 9 lectures on the platform of religious conference, convention, and 1 lecture on the platform of scientific convention. Swami Vivekananda had the introductory speech on 11th September, followed by he spoke on why there is no unity among people all over the world. He spoke about India doesn't have any necessity of a religion as such. What is the need of India? That was the title. He spoke on Buddhism. Swami Vivekananda presented a paper on Hinduism, and all his lectures were received with rapt attention. And the local newspapers of United States, they wrote about Vivekananda. The social lion of the day was Vivekananda. And they, without forgetting, mentioned that it is worth to go through the life and teachings of Vivekananda, and every educated man of America must follow what Vivekananda says. And this is the greatest event that proved the worth of Indian monk. And ultimately, America came to a conclusion. The whole Americans came to a conclusion, declaring that, yes, it is Columbus who discovered American soil, but it was Vivekananda who discovered American soul. So this was the conclusion of Americans, and perhaps the whole West for that matter. Swami Vivekananda, in his last speech on September 27th, 1893, made it very clear in the midst of 7,000 audience. He says, holiness, purity, and charity are not the exclusive possessions of any church in this world, and that every system, every religion has produced men and women of the most exalted character. And Swami Vivekananda also made it very clear that Vedanta recognizes no sin, it only recognizes the error. It will not speak about the defects of any person or any religion. It speaks about the deficiency of the individuals. Please, Swami Vivekananda says, please allow me to call you, brethren, by the sweet name, heirs of immortal bliss. O Amrutaputrare. The Hindu refuses to call you sinners. You are the children of God. And invariably, wherever he went, Swamiji made it very clear with these words. He says, my ideal indeed can be put in a few words, and that is to preach unto mankind their divinity and how to make it manifest in every part, every moment of their lives. Swami Vivekananda became a torchbearer for the whole assembly of Parliament of Religions. He was highly respected and honored by one and all. He became the most popular, most efficient, eminent, and a successful preacher. And during his stay in the Western world, Swamiji's personality was very much influencing people belonging to different fields of the society. Swamiji was honored and highly respected by scientists like Nikola Tesla, William James, Hiram Maxim. Philosopher and psychologist like William James became an ardent follower of Vivekananda. Great orator and a renowned atheist, Robert Ingersoll, got convinced about the justification to his question by Swami Vivekananda. Scholars like John Henry Wright, Max Muller, Paul Dewson were highly influenced by Vivekananda. Poets like Ella Wheeler Wilcox, Harriet Monroe, singers like Emma Thursby, Emma Calway, actress by name Sarah Bernhardt, religious leaders like Sarah Farman, Lewis Janes, Charles Bonney, John Henry Burroughs, and a rich man by name John D. Rockefeller became the most affectionate associates of Swami Vivekananda, and they said that they are all indebted to Swami Vivekananda's great thoughts and his great message to the West at large. Then can we consider Vivekananda as a universal man? With this explanation, what I did till now, it is quite enough to prove that since he was very much received by the Western world, he proved his worth. But what Swami Vivekananda says about his involvement, his role in the world history. Swamiji says, doubtless I love India, but every day my sight grows clearer. What is India or England or America for us? We are the servants of those gods whom an ignorant call man. This is the great message of Vivekananda. His own reality he has revealed out in front of the Westerners. That is why Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, a renowned thinker of India, says, Swami Vivekananda was a spokesman of divine logos. By logo is meant the universal intelligence which governs all phenomena in this universe. Swami Vivekananda was a historian too. He thoroughly went through the world history. He had greatest knowledge of history also. Swami Vivekananda had grave reservation about French Revolution. He says, the whole French nation became mad in the name of liberty and equality. France became a republic. With the edge of the sword and at the point of bayonet, Napoleon thrust liberty, equality, and fraternity into the very bone and marrow of Europe. Later, Napoleon became the Emperor of France and successfully accomplished the consolidation of the France Empire. Swamiji had a grave reservation about French Revolution. Our intellectuals of contemporary India, they speak high about Russian Revolution, French Revolution, German Revolution, so on and so forth. But Swamiji had a very clear idea about such revolutions. Swamiji warned the Western world in London. He says, religion is of deeper importance than politics, since religion goes to the root of our life and it deals with the essence of conduct. Swamiji says, my dear Westerners, I have seen your parliament, your senate, your vote, your majority, your ballot. It is something everywhere, it is the same thing. Swamiji says, the powerful men in every country and moving the societies whatever way they like, and the rest are only a flock of sheep. In 1896, Swamiji warned the Westerners by telling that you are sitting on the volcano. The Westerners have enough material prosperity. If you don't consider spiritual growth seriously, you will burn out. Since you are sitting on the volcano, it will deteriorate half of the world, he warned. There was not an iota of imagination about the future happening of two world wars when Swami Vivekananda uttered these things in 1896. But you should know, the world neglected Vivekananda's words and ultimately the world faced the consequences for that. In 1896, in an interview in London, Swami Vivekananda says, but the basis of all systems, social or political, rests upon the goodness of man. No nation is great or good only for the reason that its parliament enacts it. But a country can become good and great only because for the reason that its men are good and great. The secret of success of the Westerners, Swamiji appreciated, lies in the matter of faculty of organization and conjoined action. This is only possible with mutual trust, cooperation, and help. Swami Vivekananda, if we sincerely observe, he was a socio-spiritual leader who felt the importance of an international outlook and the need for international organizations. Swamiji says, even in politics and sociology, problems that were only national 20 years back can no more be the problems at the national level, and with the mindset of the nation, you cannot solve the problems of 20 years old. Now, you have to solve them with a broader outlook of international grounds. Swamiji says, international organizations, international combinations, international laws are the cry of the day. After listening to Swami Vivekananda's great message, the West recalled their own founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson. As we all know, Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States, once cautioned American populace with these words: who thought democracy was natural, said as clearly as possible that there was no democracy without proper education. This is not pity or platitude. People cannot succeed without the ability to think the alternatives, to evaluate courses of action, and weigh consequences. All these can be achieved by good system of education. Swami Vivekananda's views was in congruence with what Jefferson uttered. That is why, comparing the words of Jefferson and Vivekananda, people started respecting Vivekananda even more. As Swami Vivekananda truly cautioned the Western world about the education that is mainly aimed for earning only the material prosperity, keeping that in mind, Swamiji says, the education which will procure more pleasures, more food, will become glorious in the beginning, then that will degrade and degenerate. Along with the prosperity will rise whitehead all the inborn jealousies and hatreds of human race. Competition and merciless cruelty will become the watchword of the day if you aim at only gaining the material prosperity out of your education. Swami Vivekananda cautioned the youths all over the world by telling that you must be self-efficient and you must be self-dependent. He says, it is tremendous error to feel helpless. Do not seek help from anyone. We are our own help. If we cannot help ourselves, then there is nobody to help us. Swami Vivekananda guided Indians with these words: you must have both the Western science coupled with Vedanta, Brahmacharya as the guiding motto, and also Shraddha and faith in one's own self. Like the gentle dew that falls unseen and unheard, yet brings into blossom the fairest roses, has been the contribution of India to the thought of the world at large. He says, youth is the wonderful time in life when energy is limitless, human creativity is at its best, and never say die, spirit is at its peak. And his universal message is like this. We want to lead mankind to the place where there is neither Vedas, nor Quran, nor Bible. Yet, this has to be done by harmonizing Vedas, Quran, and Bible. And he cautioned the whole populace of the world with this wonderful utterance, telling that everything can be sacrificed for truth, but truth cannot be sacrificed for anything on earth. If society cannot adjust itself with truth, if society cannot elevate itself to the level of truth, it is better to go to a forest and live like animals. And he says, if society doesn't respect truth, let it die. Sooner the better. That society is the greatest, in which the highest truths become practical. Ultimately, Swami Vivekananda's contribution to the world thoughts is an interesting topic to be dealt with. We can get more than 30 most important contributions of Vivekananda's thought to the humanity at large. To quote a few, number one, Swami Vivekananda could contribute a new view of man. Number two, new understanding of religion. Number three, a positive view of life. Number four, new understanding of truth. Number five, new views on society. Number six, contribution to the field of education. Number seven, contribution to conscious studies. Number eight, contribution to the understanding of arts. Contribution number nine, contribution to the ethics or moral science. Number 10, contribution to the understanding of love, not only human but also divine. Number 11, contribution to the all-round development of a personality. Number 12, development of a new philosophy of karma, that is karma yoga. Number 13, application of practical Vedanta to achieve success in life, economic prosperity, strength and wisdom to face the difficulties in day-to-day life. Number 14, elevation and self-empowerment of women. Number 15, how to deal with the existential problems in life. Number 16, message of inspiration to the youth all over the world. Number 17, contribution to neo-humanism, rights of underprivileged. Number 18, providing a philosophical basis to the democratic ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Number 19, contributions to the world philosophy. Number 20, contribution to the elevation of womanhood. 21, contribution to global spirituality. 22, contribution to yoga as a universal path for all humankind. 23, contribution to positive psychology. 24, contribution to socio-political thought. 25, contribution to economic thought. 26, contribution to historical thought. 27, contribution to literature. 28, contribution to wisdom thought, that is Niti Vakya. 29, contribution to bringing about rapport between the East and the West. 30th, contribution to internationalism. 31st, contribution to human culture. 32nd, contribution to the rise of a global civilization. And finally, 33, contribution to the unity of mankind. These are the greatest contributions of Swami Vivekananda to the modern thought. That is why we must study Vivekananda with an open mind. As Maharshi Aravinda Ghosh rightly said, Vivekananda's going to the West, the subsequent work carried forth by his torchbearers has done more to India than 100 round table conferences could do. This is a fact. I repeat, Vivekananda's going to the West, the subsequent work carried on by his fellow beings has done more to India than 100 round table conferences could do. As Christopher Isherwood rightly said, Swami Vivekananda's nationalism was not nationalism in a small sense. It was a kind of super nationalism, a kind of internationalism. Sri Ramakrishna is Vedanta's greatest living exemplar, said Christopher. Professor George M. Williams says, Swami Vivekananda launched the 20th century's most potent religions from force in India. We must know the utterance of Mayor of London by name Boris Johnson, who says Swami Vivekananda's dedication to service and the service of the poorest and most vulnerable in the society in particular reminds us that we are at our best when we are at our most selfless. About Swami Vivekananda, being a man of self-respect, proud of his country, his religion, his culture, he did not want to go to the West as a beggar. You should know this. But he went to the West as a messenger from East to the West. The chief characteristics of his message in toto was universality, modernity, and practicality. Swami Vivekananda was a great patriot. He was a religious reformer, a spiritual leader, cultural ambassador of India, a great world teacher, and a world thinker. As A.L. Basham, historian and Indologist, rightly says, in centuries to come, Swami Vivekananda will be remembered as one of the main molders of modern world. Great philosopher William James says, Swami Vivekananda is the paragon of Vedanta missionaries. Carl Jackson, a great cultural artist of America, says, 100 years in United States has given Ramakrishna movement a visibility and a degree of acceptance unequaled by any other organization of the West. Max Muller was very much confident about Vivekananda's message about Shankara and Ramanuja in America and Europe. Before I conclude, I want to bring to your kind notice the utterances of three great souls the world has recorded. The first one, in the year 1993, during the 100th year celebration of Chicago historical event, a function organized by UNESCO, that was the centenary of Vivekananda's speech in United States of America. The then Director General of UNESCO, Federico Mayer, in his keynote address says, I am indeed struck by the similarity of the constitution of Ramakrishna Mission, which Swami Vivekananda established as early as 1897, with that of UNESCO, drawn up in 1945. Both the institutions place the human being at the center of their efforts aimed at development. Both place tolerance at the top of the agenda for building peace and democracy. Both recognize the variety of human cultures and societies as an essential aspect of common heritage. Secondly, Swami Vivekananda's 150th birthday was celebrated by UNESCO, and in that program, the then Director General, Miss Irina Bokova, in her speech says, "What better subject to explore today than the universal message of Swami Vivekananda in this world where societies are increasingly interconnected but also increasingly fragmented." Before I conclude, I shall quote the third and the last utterance of Ambassador John Kenneth Galbraith. John Kenneth Galbraith was ambassador in 5 to 6 countries. He had viewed India very seriously and with great interest. He wrote beautifully in his memories about his tenure in India. I want to quote his words as it is. "I have seen poverty in many countries of the world. One unusual attribute I found among the poor of India is there is richness in their poverty. India is rich in poverty, but it is a surprise to know that Indians do not count their wealth only in terms of money. They don't count their wealth only in terms of money." My dear friends, this is India. This is what exactly the world was longing for, to study and to assimilate such great thoughts. It was Swami Vivekananda who created history and who made the whole world to come under the umbrella of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And as he properly said, go back to Upanishads. That is the only solution to prevent the deterioration of human race because of modern ideas and so many ideas garbed in the cloth of secularism, so on and so forth. So Swami Vivekananda, before I conclude, I want to quote the words of one gentleman. That was an answer given by that gentleman to a question. What was Vivekananda? The immediate answer, the reply was, what was he not? This speaks about the 100 different facets of Swami Vivekananda's personality. Swami Vivekananda could bring a revolution in the whole human society of the world. Even today, the whole intellectual strata of the world has bowed down to the great teachings of Swami Vivekananda. It is high time for our younger generation, our teachers, lecturers, professors to thoroughly study the life and teachings of Vivekananda. Thereby, they can not only get all the strength percolated into their individual personalities, ultimately, an individual can become a personality and a human can become a human resource at large. And this is the greatest tonic we can extract from the teachings of Vivekananda. And you don't find an iota of difference between his life and his teachings. That is why he has become a source of perennial inspiration to the human at large. I thank our university authorities, our coordinator of Vivekananda Study Center in the university, and my beloved brother, Sri Ranjan, for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this historical 29th event of Chicago Address. I convey my thanks to all my Atma Bandhus. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.